If you don't learn problem solving and critical thinking skills, you will not be successful in any career, regardless of whatever tool that you want to use or you're interested in from a tech perspective. You will be behind the rest of the pack.
Welcome back to the OpenEd podcast. I am the OpenEd CEO and sometimes host of this show, Isaac Morehouse. And today I've got Aaron Osmond with me. Aaron is the CEO of Knowledge Pillars, which is one of our curriculum partners at OpenEd. And he has 25 plus years of experience as a leader in IT training and certification. So really excited to get into this. Aaron, welcome.
Great to be here, Isaac. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, you bet. So I'm going to give a little cue up here. We're going to talk, I think, a lot today about skills and signals, or something that I've told young people who are kind of looking to get their career started for a long time is that the two things you need are the ability to create value and the ability to prove it. And the relationship between those things can get kind of murky sometimes. Like people can go chasing the signal. Maybe it's a college degree or some piece of paper that says, hey, I'm really smart. And they may get that without actually getting the skills to back it up, or vice versa. You may have the skills, but you don't know how to signal it or prove it to the world. And I think this whole world of, especially in the tech space that moves so fast, certifications, like there's got to be a lot of people rightly recognize that degrees are really expensive and they don't necessarily signal skill, but you got to have some way to signal your skill. So I want to start at the beginning of your career, because I heard something that I think is a perfect tie-in. You started your career without what most people think you need, the signal they think you need to get in the door. You had no degree, and yet you got a job at WordPerfect, which was, the predecessor to basically Word and all of the Word documents that we have today. So how did you do that? How did you break in off the get-go?
Well, I think one of the first pieces of advice I want to give to both kids and parents is that it still does matter who you know in this world, and connections help. I had the benefit of having a mother who was actually working at WordPerfect in their computer support, their customer support division. And she connected me with the representative there in their HR department. And I got a job as a receptionist at WordPerfect Corporation. But where I went with it next is what really matters, is that I then dove in and started self-teaching my own abilities around Data Perfect, which was a database coding software, and built trust and credibility, having some technical skills. And I earned that over time, right? As part of my full-time job, I was doing HR work, but I was building my skill set on the side to set me up for my next career step.
It's funny. You kind of implied two different things that are true about the whole, like, who you know in your network. One is, because a lot of people will say, oh, well, you just got lucky. You just had to have a parent that worked at a place that, right. Like, everybody knows people that work places, right? So on the one hand, like, I always tell people your network is better than you think. Like, it really, I had this experience with my own son a couple of years ago. He wanted to get a job at a gym, and he went and applied, and he told me after he had applied, and I said, well, wait a minute. I actually happened to meet the owner of that gym at the chiropractor just last week. And I don't know him well, but we chatted, had a good conversation, and exchanged numbers. You should have told me. I could have texted him, right? And often, like, there is people one or two steps removed from you in your network. If you let them know and kind of like, hey, everybody, here's what I'm good at. Here's what I'm interested in. Do you know anybody? But on the flip side, so your network is better and stronger than you think, but your network also won't do all the work for you. Like, it can get you that first, hey, I'll get you an introduction. I'll get you a chance. I'll give you a shot. But if you show up and they hire you and you're terrible for 3 months, your network won't help you anymore, I
want to say two things on that. First of all, over the last 30 years, I focused very hard on my net. Right now I have, for example, 7,500 plus contacts on LinkedIn that I've earned over the years. And I've focused on developing and maintaining connections to a lot of those people in the network, because not only for me, but for my friends and my colleagues, that network matters to create opportunity. So that's one piece of advice for students and parents, is build your network, start now, connect and maintain those relationships. And then on the career side, you've got to be constantly practicing this principle of constant, continuous learning, developing and refining and improving your skills. It's never over. It is a lifelong pursuit. especially in the technology industry where skills are constantly changing and the demand for those skills adjusting even in a year's time. You've got to be reinventing yourself, and that's fun, not a burden. That's fun to be constantly learning and building that discipline in your life.
I want to go. I know this is not really where we initially intended to go. We'll get back onto the
We'll get back
tech
there.
certifications, but this networking thing, it's a really great. I think it's a great topic for people if they are, let's say, homeschooling or doing something alternative, and they're doing a lot of self-directed learning. So maybe they're going through knowledge pillars courses, and they're getting
Right.
the skill. They're learning the things they need. Maybe they're tinkering on their own and doing some coding. How do you network if you don't have, because like a pre-built network, right? If you're plugged in and you're at like I don't want to say, I'm not going to credit every college campus with being a good place to network, but there are some where you can. If you're
Yeah.
not in one of those settings, how do you go about building that deliberately starting at an early age? So you're not just learning in isolation.
I think that you have to realize that within your own environment, your neighborhood, your friend group, your family's friends, that there are professionals that are working in those industries that you might be interested in. And to be proactive and confident about going and asking for information. Learn about the various careers through people you already know, and then they connect, and then they connect to somebody else. I have an example of a son of mine who was very interested in pursuing a career in Homeland Security. I had a friend that worked in the FBI, and he simply networked through me to that individual, who then connected him to multiple different individuals across the different, security groups that are in the U.S. government. And he has built and is starting to build his own network of people that are interested in or doing the careers that he wants to pursue. The same principle applies whether you're doing homeschooling or in a college environment. You still need to build those networks. You have the resources all around you. Don't assume that you don't have that network accessible to you from your own family's connections right there alone.
Yeah, it's there's kind of two prongs to that too, right? You need a vertical network and a horizontal network.
Right.
So if you're interested in, coding or a particular thing, finding groups, they can be online, they can be in person, of peers who are also tinkering and experimenting and creating those sort of horizontal connections. But vertically, like if you don't, I'm just going to tell you, if you're a young person out there listening to this, if you don't know what every one of your friends' parents do for a living, find out. Because I guarantee one of them will do something that you've never heard of before. And you're like, that sounds interesting. What's that? Like my son met a guy, my son was working at a restaurant. This is after he worked at a gym. He's worked lots of places. And he was talking to a guy, and he said, yeah, this guy told me that all he does is write copy for ads. And my son didn't know that that was a thing. Now, of course, I could have told him that was a thing, but he won't listen to me because I'm his dad. And he's
Exactly.
like, that's really intriguing. I didn't know you could just write, like as an independent agent, write copy for advertisements. Like, that's really cool. So he started asking him about it. He started learning. And I think just at least knowing and being curious, because I've had the same experience. A neighbor of ours found out what I did and came and asked me if he could do video editing for me. And he asked if he could do it for free. And I said, I'll give you a shot. And then I started paying him to do it. So I think that's great to start where you are in the networking.
Dude, remember, don't forget about your networks also from an education perspective. Like, for example, let's say you take a Knowledge Pillars course and obtain a Knowledge Pillars certification, validating that you have skills in coding or web development. There are dozens and hundreds of other students across the country that have also obtained that certification, who you can network with socially, right? On the social networks. You post your information on LinkedIn, you connect to everybody that has a similar Knowledge Pillars credential or certification digital badge, and you start networking in that way as well. There's just so many different ways to network, and we could do a whole show, Isaac, just on this topic.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how LinkedIn is secretly the most valuable social media network there is. And it's not as fun, and it's not going to give you all the like current events and debates about politics, which is probably what makes it valuable.
Better.
But career wise, it's like people don't really realize how valuable it can be. Let's move from the networking thing to, you've worked in tech companies. So before Knowledge Pillars, which is all about training and giving people the knowledge they need and the certification in a lot of these tech skills, whether it's, I know you have like various programming languages and a lot of different IT specialties, but you have worked in various companies, Amazon Web Services. We mentioned way back when you started at WordPerfect.
Right.
And it seems like in those corporate roles, you have been focused on certification and training. And so I'm curious, in the tech world, what are those companies what is the connection between skill and signal there? Because I know this is an imperfect thing. I like to use an analogy. If you're buying a house and your realtor asks you for a wish list, you give them 10 things you want, but they know that they're probably going to find a house that doesn't have a couple of those, but maybe it has a couple things you didn't expect. So like these are not perfect. So like a certification, like we're looking to hire somebody, they need certain skills, and we don't know how to describe it except to say, how about you have to achieve this certificate? And we know that those are like imperfect metrics, but we're always trying to find better ones. So in the corporate world, what are companies looking for in terms of IT and tech roles for certifications? Like these seem to be changing all the time. Once upon a time, it was a CS degree. Now is it a boot? Like what is the current philosophy there?
Okay, so let me respond in this context, Isaac, that for the last 30 years, I have been in roles connecting industry, the tech industry, to students in education for a very specific reason. Industry is not satisfied and has not been satisfied for decades around the quality of potential future tech worker that is coming out of the education system, whether that's from high schools or colleges, community colleges, with the rare exception that there is a lot more satisfaction with what's happening coming out of the tech and community college system than the university systems across the globe. Okay. The reason for that, I'll get to it. I think the key here is that while college and degrees and high school degrees prove that students can do hard things, that they can endure, that they can work hard, that they can finish things, it does not necessarily prove that they know how to do or utilize the tools and technologies that industry demands to be successful in the commercial marketplace. So that's why certification, which is, let me define that. Certification is nothing more than industry defining the technical skills required to be successful in the workplace and validating that independent of the education system itself. We're not relying on the educator or the school or the college to test it. We are providing our own certifications from industry to be used in education to validate skills, competency in the tech. And it's been a critical project going on for decades, trying to meet the need, this insatiable need, especially in tech, around people that have potential candidates for jobs that actually have proven skills in a given technology or suite of technologies. So that's what my job has been for almost 33 years now. Yeah, I've been in leadership roles for over 25 in these different types of companies. My most recent one was with Amazon, where I brought an e-learning based tech and certification solution into education. And now I'm the CEO of Knowledge Pillars, focusing specifically on coding and web development technical skills for students.
Yeah, I love what you said there, that it's not a certification that's you go through the education system and then the education system says, based on our standards, we're going to say you did good or bad or in between. You're going to industry and saying, what is it that you need as a minimum or whatever's going to signal goodness, greatness, and then educating to that. And I think it's so funny that we approach it this way. And I understand education is about a lot of things. It's not only about preparation for a career, but preparation for a career is a very large part of what we are looking for in an education for our kids, for ourselves, so that we can gain skills that can help us create value and have a meaningful and successful life. And if you look at that and say, okay, I want this thing called a career, instead of saying what's needed to get that, we just sort of say, okay, I'm going to do a bunch of stuff and hope that hirers like it, right? Instead of going and asking and saying, hey, what are you actually valuing right now? It's funny. I had so many young people over the years that I've helped in two previous companies to get jobs say, well, no one will hire me because I don't have a degree. And I'm like, well, have you asked? And they said, well, the job listing says degree required. And I said, look, I've literally helped hundreds of people without degrees get jobs that said degree required. And they're like, how? So, well, you go and you ask them what things are the most valuable, what employers are the most valuable. Then you learn from that. And we have this amazing opportunity today that you didn't used to have pre-digital era, the ability to show your work, to
Yes.
build things that demonstrate value. So like I would place people mostly in non-technical roles. So say a marketing role, and I would tell them, if you apply for a job, but instead of just doing the online application, you also email directly the hiring manager and say, hey, I saw this job. Sounds really cool. By the way, I built a little landing page for you with a 5 email drip sequence for anyone who opts in, and just kind of like to demonstrate what I can do. And here's a little video of me walking through.
Yeah.
They'll see that and they'll say, I got to interview this person. And they won't ask about your degree, right? Because you have the ability to demonstrate. So, and obviously your GitHub repository, if you're committing code, if you're building projects, it's like you can be your own credential in a way that wasn't possible before.
I want to add a couple of things to that. I think that this opportunity to prove your skills with tools other than a degree, like a certification or a portfolio and things like that, are the future. In fact, it's now. Most companies, most tech companies globally, have reached a saturation point with the standard bachelor's degree qualification requirement. They're finding that students that come out with those degrees lack practical skills, lack problem-solving skills, lack critical thinking skills, and they're having to spend literally hundreds of millions of dollars every year for US companies alone, retraining or training the student for the first time for skills needed for entry-level positions, Isaac. So this idea of the importance of building out your own portfolio of skills and proven things that you've done or built, whether that be websites, e-commerce capability, marketing services, technical skills, GitHub sites showing your web micro applications, whatever it is, super important to employers right now. Now, on the side note, another area that we're trying to solve is that oftentimes, even then, employers still have to go about validating, did that student actually build that? Was it really them?
Yes.
Unfortunately, we live in that kind of world right now. And so another power of certification from a third party is the validation that that student not only built those things, here's a third party evidence that that student actually can code, for example, or can build a web application, validated by a third party in the commercial sector that says, we assessed their live in the software capabilities. That's what Knowledge Pillars is about. We're validating on behalf of the individual. Not only do they have the skills, but look, here's their portfolio. The two of those things together make it so easy for a hiring decision from a tech company. That's what they're asking for.
Oh, I love that combination, because, let's just say pre-digital era, I mean, most eras in human history, the time required to validate someone's claims was so extreme, which is why you needed some kind of third-party signal. So if I come to you and say, hey, I'm really smart and talented and trustworthy, you can't hire a private eye to follow me around for 3 months and see if that's true. But if you say, oh, the University of North Carolina said that, and they have a good reputation, so I'm going to trust that. Exactly. So that's, the basic signaling. Over time, as that signal became more and more inflated, and what that university is doing to decide whether they should put the stamp is all behind a black box. It's all secretive. It's like, well, what did you do there to earn that degree? There's no transparency. And so having the combination, like, here's what I did. Right. I can show you, we can open it up and I can show you what I built. And I have this third party. So if you don't want to go in and validate it all yourself, you don't have to. But if you're at all suspicious, you can. And I think that's that great medium, because if you're looking at applicants for a job, you don't have the time to validate everything. Okay, this is great. Sorry, I'm rambling, but a great little test of this. So I had a previous company that we just could never get it big enough, but we had basically video pitches. It was like a builder of skills profiles and pitches for job seekers. Yeah. And on there, we would have them list the tech tools that they knew how to use. And so it might be simple stuff, or it might be like, Zapier or WordPress. And then we had a little button that said, watch me prove it. And you could upload a little video, a screen share of you demonstrating your knowledge of that tool. And what's interesting is, if you put a video on there, the hiring managers took that as, they didn't even watch the video. But the fact that you were willing to put one there, and that meant that you knew that someone could watch it, they were like, cool, good enough. I don't need to watch your 10-minute video, but I believe you. So like, I think it's that combination of like, if you want to look under the hood, I'm not scared of that, but you can also trust me because I've put the certification on it.
I think you're just nailing my point about the importance of that third-party validation. and the importance of validation of the individual's actual skills, right? That it wasn't just done in collaboration with some experts or as a team or a group, that they did it together, that this kid or this student actually has those skills. Another challenge I would just bring up right now about college degrees and also certifications is that it's become more of a problem actually for certifications in the recent decade, is that it's all been about knowledge transfer. It's been about can you memorize?
Mm.
Can you memorize information and knowledge about a technology or about a skill set? And a lot of certifications actually have devalued the usefulness of third-party credentials because they're only memorizing knowledge. So an important change that's taking place is this practical competency-based assessment where the student is actually being assessed in the technology live during the exam, right? The ability to see, can this person actually code in Python in a time-sensitive, high-pressure, high-stakes exam? Can they actually develop on WordPress? Can they go in the tool and complete tasks while in a testing environment? And enabling those live, real world, hands-on testing environments, validating that skill set, takes the value of the certification from here to here in the minds of an employer. I know what that certification is. I know that they could not pass it unless they could actually code. I know that it was actually proctored by a third party. So I know nobody could have influenced the outcome. That's the validation I need. And that will differentiate that student from another applicant that just has GitHub.
Yeah.
Just saves the time for the employer. So that's what we're trying to accomplish at Knowledge Builders, is supporting the student in that way.
Oh man, that I love that. What is it's funny because now you have all these AI tools coming on the scene and they're just kind of, in a way, at least the first generation, it's like when Google emerged on hyperdrive, right? Suddenly you can Google anything and find the answer. Now you can not only find the answer, but you can have it put into words that you don't even have to write. So testing someone on memorization is pointless, right? Like those questions can get answered. Now it's not that they're like perfect or whatever, but you need something more fundamental than ability to find an answer to a question. You need an ability to know how to thrive in a dynamic environment and adapt and do those things on the fly in time constraints. So how have you at Knowledge Pillars? That's a very tricky thing to try to figure out how to certify, because certification requires some form of like a rubric, some form of standardization. But yet these things, part of what you're trying to get is how do you respond in a non-standard situation? So how can you try to marry those two things? Where are you at with that?
First of all, in tech, you know this, Isaac, that there is no one way to accomplish a task in a software tool. There are multiple paths, right, that could lead to solving that task or fixing that problem or doing this project in a given software tool like Python. So the best way for us to do it is to create an environment where the actual tool is part of the exam, where the student can use any method that they know how to go in and solve that particular project. One of the item types in our exam is live in the application. It's the best equalizer for all of the exam environments because it allows the student to do what they know how to do or not, right, inside the actual tool. So across all of our exams, whether it's WordPress or Python or JavaScript or whatever, we've enabled that live in the application, live in the browser testing capability. We're literally watching the student. We're sitting on top of the software, the coding platform, and we're watching what they do. And as they compile their script, we validate the end result correct. We don't validate whether they did the steps in a certain way because that's not real world. So that's how we accomplish that goal. And then I'll just say this too about this practical application. Most students find it so much more engaging and fun and interesting to prove what they can do rather than be tested on something they've memorized. The learning experience itself as part of Knowledge Pillars is also in the lab. It's in the practice exams, unlimited attempts to go in and do the technology, use the tool, work through the questions, figure out the projects, and learn by doing. And then by the time they come to the certification exam, they've not only had so much fun, but they have absolutely learned the product, and they are so confident when they walk into that exam experience. No problem, they're going to pass that test.
Oh, I love that. I think if I have learned anything about coders and technical people, of which I am not one, I've worked with a lot of really, really great ones. they love just personalities that tend to be attracted with it. They love problem solving. They
Love it.
love a challenge and a puzzle, and they want to be able to kind of flex their problem solving, skills, and just being told, okay, memorize a bunch of stuff and answer a bunch of yes or no questions. That's not inspiring or interesting. There's a part of them that's like, well, I question the whole premise, right? Like they always believe they have a better way, and saying, here's,
It is.
yes,
Right?
yes, like here's the end state. You figure out the best way to get there. And every
Right.
coder worth their salt is going to be like, I have a way that's better than everyone else, right? Like, and that's part of the great thing. So
It's so real world, Isaac. That's the power of it.
so give me let's say there's parents listening to this whose kids are, on the younger end, anywhere from middle school, high school, and they don't know yet. They haven't decided, oh, I'm passionate about, let's say, coding. How do you kind of figure out, how do you dabble and find out? Because like it's not the career path for every kid, but for those who it is, what are those early indicators or things maybe you can expose kids to help them figure out if that's something they like? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I this is an area that I have, I've had so many conversations with educators and parents, with the tech industry itself about the type of individual that they're really looking for, and it really comes down to both aptitude and attitude, right? There are some basic things that you notice in these kids: problem solvers, puzzle lovers, right? People that are super creative and focused on the details, that they're interested in figuring out how something works. They want to tear things apart, right? They want to know what makes something tick. It's that type of personality that typically is a good fit. Honestly, they are, usually more interested in math. They're curious about math and logic. They're very deep thinkers, analytical in their approach, right, to everything in life. You can spot it pretty quick, early on, middle school timeframe for sure. So the best way to do it is to give them an opportunity to go and try it, right? What's powerful about the partnership with MyTech High and Knowledge Pillars is we're enabling students to get these foundational exposure to Python and JavaScript and to WordPress, and go in and try these technologies, use the labs, use the practice exams, get a feel for the technology, do some projects, and see if it's something that they're passionate about. And in most cases, if they had any interest at all, they just become super engaged because they want to know more. And then the powerful thing is there's a whole pathway now ahead of them. There's 5 different certifications on WordPress. There's 14 different coding certifications that are available to them. They can pursue it on a self-paced basis, pass exam after exam after exam, and do it on their time and in their interest. That's what the kind of learning that we're trying to enable together from a Knowledge Pillars and MyTech High perspective.
Yeah, it's funny. There's such a great world of, and this didn't exist nearly to this degree 20 years ago, maybe even 10, 15 years ago, of what I would call like in between, like low code type of software tools where if you don't know, you see somebody sitting there doing like serious coding and it just looks like, a foreign language. And you're like, I don't know. How could I know if that's interesting to me? I don't know what they're even doing. There's all these in between things. Like, and I tell young people all the time, I'm constantly looking for employees, contractors who can customize a WordPress site that involves very little coding, maybe a little CSS, a little HTML here and there, but a lot of it's working with like widgets and pre-designed things, or Zapier. Like you're going through and connecting 2 pieces of software and making them talk together. You're not doing any coding. You're just setting up HubSpot to set up automated email triggers. This is not technical per se, but most people in there, if you're a marketer and you specialize in writing great content, you're not an expert in how to set up different fields in HubSpot and all this kind of like, it's like semi-technical. And that's such a great place to start because conceptually it's easier to understand what's happening. And then if you get into it and you're the type who figures out, oh, I want to do more customization than this tool is allowing me to. Now it kind of is nice gateway into the actual coding stuff.
Well, I'll just add that, like let's take WordPress, for example. WordPress is used by almost 50% of all websites globally. 50%. There are 400 million new websites built on WordPress every year. Every major company, small business, and entrepreneur has to have a knowledge of WordPress to maximize the power of the web, enable social media, and turn on e-commerce, all of these tools, right, that are so critical. It's just a basic skill set, not just for techies. This applies to business and marketing personnel as well, right? They have to have these core skills. And most parents and families, all due respect to all the families, they just have no idea
Yeah.
that that's out there, right? That's why we're here to share that. And so those basic skills are so critical for success in business. And the same thing from a coding perspective, those foundational understandings of scripting language and web application languages, dynamic building of websites, for example, those foundational skills are what you're going to learn. And then it opens up your mind to all the other career paths that you can pursue that you didn't even think were possible. Once you have those fundamentals, you know where you want to go. You can tell where your interests are. It just opens up a whole world of career possibilities.
And I'm telling you, if you're a great WordPress developer who can take a mock-up and build a site that looks just like that, I'm always looking for you. So send me an email. So here's an objection that I get from young people sometimes. I don't think it's worth trying to learn to code or anything like that, because we're almost to the point where I can just pick up my phone and say, build me a website that looks like this, or build me an app like this, and some AI tool will build it all. Why would I waste my time learning that? It's going to be outmoded. What is your take on that?
Well, I think it's super important to know that technology is constantly changing. AI is a great example of fundamental transformations that are happening to every career. We're actually going to be releasing our own AI curriculum and exams and certifications, because you need to know how to use AI. AI is nothing more than a technology tool. It does make things happen faster, more effective, more efficiently, but it doesn't problem solve everything for you. If you don't have a fundamental understanding of how it actually works, you can't make those connections work seamlessly, nor can you direct ChatGPT or OpenAI from AWS to build what you want to build. You have to have the fundamentals to maximize the use of the tools. AI is nothing more than a tool. It's not going to completely take over all the human elements that are required. And I'll reinforce it with this last point. If you don't learn problem solving and critical thinking skills, you will not be successful in any career, regardless of whatever tool that you want to use or you're interested in from a tech perspective. You will be behind the rest of the pack. That's the power of learning coding, because those problem solving and critical thinking skills will be mastered.
Yeah. When people say, hey, this thing that humans previously did, we now have a tool for that. The answer is not, well, there's nothing for me to do now. The answer is, who's building the tool? Who's maintaining the tool, right? And those are the highest leverage roles. I mean, let's stick to a simpler analogy. People used to dig ditches. Now you have a powered backhoe that can dig those ditches much faster. But if you can learn to build or maintain or repair or operate a backhoe, you can command a lot more in terms of earnings and value creation because of the leverage. So rather than saying, oh, this current job digging ditches is now gone, I might as well, I don't know what, do nothing. What's coming in? Who is behind that? There's always a human writing the code at some point. There's always a human at directing, making the decisions, using the creative problem-solving capacity that we have. And I think finding these things exciting and as a reason to go learn more and experiment more is the approach you need, rather than being like, well, I might as well just chill and let AI solve it.
More. I mean, I think the key is that as human beings, our defining differentiation, right, between us and technologies and tools, robots and infrastructure, is our capacity to innovate. We are constantly innovating. And if you can learn, like I started with on this show, the value of continuous learning and always improving your skills, diving deep on the newest technologies, not only is it super fun, but it keeps you relevant and highly valuable in the marketplace. So AI is just another innovation, right? And there's going to be another one after that and another one after that. And we're going to continue to shift the tools that we use, but we'll always need human innovation to take it to the next level.
So I briefly want to ask you a little bit on methodology. I don't know a lot about this, or I guess it would be pedagogy. For some reason, whenever I hear the word pedagogy, it sounds snooty and I kind of don't like it, but it is the right use, teaching method. When it comes to learning a lot of these tech skills, you guys have courses on, as you mentioned, WordPress, CSS, Python, you've got a whole lot of things. A lot of these are kind of self-paced, self-serve online courses, correct?
Yeah.
Do you find, and maybe this is just different for every learner, that, kind of doing that on your own self-paced is the most effective, or doing it like getting a group together and creating a little learning, co-op or micro school? or having some kind of mentor that can come and check you out or watch over your shoulder? What are the kind of methods that are the most effective for learning these skills?
Well, I think as part of, the pedagogy response of how you learn, that the reality is that all of us do learn a little bit differently. Some are more wired for self-study, some are more wired for following an instructor. Others really enjoy collaborative learning in a classroom with part of a project-based approach. And it's really understanding yourself, what works best for you. I think the power of the MyTech High model is it is so self-directed, right? You can create groups, you can leverage your mentor, you can do things on a self-based basis, you can move faster or slower depending on what your skill set and interest levels are. The curriculum that we use, we have several different third-party curriculum resources that we recommend. And then the key, though, is that we really want to reinforce one important learning aspect: spending time in the actual technology tools through our practice exams and labs, getting the hands-on experience, using the tool, right? Building and testing your knowledge in a hands-on practical way in the actual software applications. That's what we reinforce. All of the curriculum that we use points to projects and tasks that need to be completed. But ultimately, you come back to knowledge pillars for the hands-on experience in the platform and tools through our practice exams and certifications. That is where I think most students will all excel, because the practical use of the software creates the most engaging learning. And then the next step is, if you can do it as a group and teach someone else, teach your colleague, teach your friends, do it as a team, you're teaching each other. You learn more by teaching someone or showing someone else how to do it, really, than by any other learning methodology that there is.
I love that. It's funny. One of my daughters is 14 and she said, "Dad, there's I want to get ready to get my permit next year. There's a online thing I can do to do the written portion of the permit test." And so she's like, "Oh, I did it. I did great. So I'm going to be a great driver." I'm like, "Well, let's go out to the parking lot and practice driving." And if you, as a parent, the difference between those things, right? Like, that's good. You studied what you're supposed to do at a stop sign. Learning the pressure you need to apply to a brake to have a smooth stop, you got to get in there and do it.
Perfect. Yeah. I think that's awesome.
And what I think is really cool too, especially for younger kids, but who are, I guess, have a harder time making the connection. The old adage of, like, you're not laying bricks, you're building a cathedral. Some people, especially as you get older, you're able to see, hey, I'm doing something that doesn't look like much now, but I can see that it connects to something bigger. When you're young, that's harder to do. And so having something that has a tangible outcome that's exciting quicker is so important. I think that WordPress is a great example of that. You go build, by the time you're done, you've got a little website. And it's like, I have something I built for myself, and other people can literally type in the URL and go visit it and go visit something I built,
We enabled the WordPress lab option specifically for this, Isaac, so that students could go out and, over the semester or whatever period of time they're taking the class or doing the class, they can iterate on their own website. And then they can take that website structure and go show it to a potential employer or to a higher education institution as part of an entrance exam or whatever they want to do to prove their skills. I built this. And it's so fun for the kids too, to be able to go out and actually iterate. The WordPress lab that we've enabled in this case, completely self-contained. It's a full WordPress environment, all the e-commerce tools, admin tools, everything's there, but it's in a safe environment where they can't have any nefarious actor coming in through the open web. It's completely, enabled for the protection of the kid and the safety of the student. So we're just super excited about that opportunity for kids to get that hands-on practice and show what they can do.
That's really cool, that the safety component you mentioned, because one of the things, and we're very open about this, that, hey, all these digital tools online, it enables so much. You can learn from anywhere on your own schedule. But every parent is like, yeah, but I also don't want my kid addicted to screens, coming across weird stuff on the internet, getting hacked, and recognizing that I almost feel like the digital world is still so young that, we got this magical new tool called the internet, and now we figured out real quick all the ways you can make it terrible. and now it's that phase where it's like, okay, now let's try to kind of pull it back and have the best of both worlds, get all the benefits of digital, but figure out how to do it in a way that it's working for us and not feeling like a threat or something that's, driving us to be crazy all the time and feel scared.
Safe setting for the kids to practice and play. It's like a playground behind, all of the fences on a schoolyard, We're giving them an opportunity to do it in a safe environment without any risk of any nefarious player coming in or any kind of problem with any kind of third-party resource. It's on a safe, secure structure. It's password protected. Only the student and educators can get in. They can have access to all of the relevant tools without any of the risk. That's the power of the hands-on learning environment we're trying to create at Knowledge Pillars.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, I think the curation role is only becoming more important because, maybe a handful of years ago, I would have said, oh, if you want to learn how to do anything, go look it up on YouTube, go Google it. Now, not only is there just so much content that it's hard to sort through what's worth your time and what's a waste, there's also all kinds of crazy stuff you don't want your kids to see. And so being able to iterate and say, look, don't just go out to the wild of the World Wide Web or YouTube and try to find something. Go somewhere where someone you trust is going to have the materials that are actually going to be vetted and going to help you. Like, that role is becoming more important than ever.
Spot on. Couldn't have said it better.
Well, Aaron, this has been so much fun. Give me any teasers. I know you mentioned an AI curriculum coming. Anything else about where you're looking? Where's Knowledge Pillars going next? What's your focus?
Well, I think the key to know about Knowledge Pillars is that we're there to provide a complete learning solution: curriculum, lab, practice test, exam, certification, validation from industry. And our goal is to support both the educator to make it easier for them, as well as the student to make it fun and engaging and valid for them to actually qualify for jobs out in the marketplace. And then the last thing I'll say is for parents, I encourage you as parents to study and understand the market opportunity around coding and web development. Give your kid an opportunity, your child a chance to explore this and see the multiple career paths. I mean, literally dozens of career paths with that basic coding foundation and web development foundation that they can pursue in high school, in college, community colleges, or on their own in boot camps and other resources that are available in the marketplace. Your child will be so grateful that you gave them that opportunity. That's what we're here to provide.
I love it. Aaron Osmond, thank you so much for joining us on the OpenEd podcast.
Been a pleasure, Isaac. Talk to you later.
Until next time.